Okay, let's talk about consent. It's a word we hear all the time, right? But really understanding what it means, well, that's one of the most powerful tools you've got. Today, we're going to break down the rights you have when it comes to your own body and your own choices. So let's dive right in.
All right, so let's start with the big question. What does consent actually mean? I'm not just talking about some vague idea, but what does it mean for you, and what does it mean in the eyes of the law? That's exactly what we're going to figure out.
Okay, first things first, what is real consent? Because, it's so much more than just a simple yes or no. It's all about the situation, the context, that makes that yes or no truly valid.
When you strip it all down, consent is pretty straightforward. It's permission. It's your power to say, yes, I agree to this, and that's not some small detail, okay? It's literally the foundation of your personal freedom and your self-respect.
But, and this is a huge but, for that consent to be real, to be valid, you have to fully get what you're agreeing to. If you can't really understand the situation or what might happen, well, then a yes doesn't actually mean anything. It has no legal weight.
So let's get super clear about this. There are times when a yes just isn't a real yes. For instance, if the person is under 16, or if they feel pressured or unsure, or maybe they're being tricked or manipulated. If they don't get what's happening or just don't have the mental capacity to decide, then that yes is legally meaningless. The law is very specific about this for a reason, to protect people from being taken advantage of.
Okay, so we've talked about the idea of consent, but how does that work in the real world, according to the law here in Namibia? Well, it actually boils down to a couple of really important numbers that everyone, and I mean everyone, should know.
All right, the first number you got to remember is 16. That's the legal age of consent for any sexual activity in Namibia. What that means is if you're younger than 16, you legally cannot give consent. Doesn't matter what you say or do, it's a clear, hard line drawn by the law.
And the next magic number is 18. This is when you become a legal adult, the age of majority. Once you hit 18, the law sees you as a full-grown adult, able to make your own big decisions, like getting married or signing contracts. So let's put those two side by side, right? At 16, you get the legal ability to consent to sexual activity, but you're still protected in a lot of ways. Then, at 18, boom, you're a legal adult. That comes with a whole new level of independence and, responsibility.
Now look, the law isn't totally black and white. It understands that things can get complicated, especially when you're young. That's why there's something called a close-in age exemption. It's basically there so that two young people who are close in age don't get into serious legal trouble. But, and this is super important, it's a very specific exception. It does not apply if there's a big age gap.
Okay, so knowing the numbers is one thing, but honestly, it's only half the battle. Because laws are written down in black and white, but our lives, they happen in all those messy gray areas. So let's talk about when the law just isn't enough.
I mean, think about it for a second. The law can be crystal clear, but what about real-life situations? What happens when there's a power imbalance? When one person is older or has more money or is more popular? That kind of thing can create pressure that feels almost impossible to say no to. And it's in these gray areas, the subtle manipulation, those awful social ideas like no means yes, or just being too scared to speak up. That's where real consent gets lost.
I know this can all sound a little heavy, maybe even a bit scary, but this is the part where the power comes right back to you. Because, see, understanding the law, that's just the starting point. The real power is in finding your voice and knowing how to use it.
And let me be 100% clear about this. You have the right to say no. That's it. No is a full sentence. You don't owe anyone an explanation or an excuse. It doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter how they feel. Your no is the final word, period.
So this is what your rights look like in the real world. First, your yes has to be given completely freely. No pressure, no guilt trips. Second, and please burn this into your brain. You can change your mind. At any point, for any reason. A yes from yesterday, or even 5 minutes ago, doesn't lock you into a yes for right now. Consent is a conversation that's always happening. And remember, the law has your back on this.
And finally, this might be the most important part of all. Knowing your rights also means knowing where to go for help when you need it. Because you should never, ever have to deal with this stuff on your own.
So who can you talk to? Well, it could be a trusted adult, like a parent or another family member. It could be a teacher you trust or a social worker. And there are professionals too, like the police, gender-based violence protection unit, and child protection services. All of these people are there for one reason: to listen, to help, and to protect you.
So, there you have it. We've gone through the definition, the law, and your rights. This final question isn't just to make you think, it's a real challenge. Now that you know your rights, how are you going to use them to keep yourself safe and to look out for your friends? Because this knowledge, this is your power. So use it.